Hey everyone! Today we're going to be talking about how to make the first page of your novel great. My name is Kristen, this is my AuthorTube and YouTube channel, and I'm really excited to jump into this topic today and make those first pages really awesome. Let's do this! So we all know that the first page of your novel is super important. I think as authors, we painstakingly go over the first sentence, the first page. We really want to get it just right. We want it to be tight. We want it to be pithy and funny and clever and the best first line, the best first page that anybody's ever seen, right? But there's a few important reasons why we're not off track for doing that. The first is that we want audiences to read the rest of our book. That first page is so important because it hooks the reader. If we do it correctly, the audience is going to be super involved in what we have to say, and we want that. We want the audience, we want potential publishers, potential agents to also be really involved in that first chapter, especially that first page. So that's one reason why we spend so much time and we really want to get it right. The second reason is we want to build tension from the get-go. We want our audience to really feel the need to know what's going to happen. And the third reason is we want to also create a really good relationship between our audience and our main character. That first page is super important in creating that relationship and having the audience trust the main character, having the audience relate to the main character, and ultimately having the audience like the main character. That's all super important, and that all happens in the first page of our novels. And so that's why I want to talk today about how we can make that first page of our novels great. And there are 3 ways that I do this in my works. It's also something that I've studied extensively. I have a degree in English. I have ghostwritten several books, and I read a lot. And so this is something that I'm familiar with, and it's something that I pay a lot of attention to, just the first page, the first sentence of a book. So to start off with, I want to talk about the main character. If we aren't able to communicate to our audience who our main character is, if we're not able to make our audience like our main character, game over, right? Like, they're not going to want to read more about the story of our main character. And so making sure that we show not only our main character's awesome traits, but also their not so awesome traits, showing their quirks. And we're just talking about one page. It's not the whole chapter. It's just focusing on that one page just to reel in the audience and get them interested. But we do need to show in that very first page a relatable character. We need to show vulnerabilities. We need to show, funny things about them. If we can give them a funny line, that's awesome. If it's a more serious story, if it's a more serious genre, we need to give our main character a heavy line, something that really draws the audience to them. And so no matter what the genre is, we need to make sure to instill in the audience's minds that the main character is someone who is trustworthy, who is likable, who has traits that's going to carry the story on. And it's really important to do that. And it's a lot to ask for in the first page, and I know that. But making sure that that main character gets represented well in that first page is super important. What are some ways we can do that? I think honestly highlighting some, not all, we don't have to pack that first page full of the main character's entire life story. In fact, I recommend against that. But showing some quirks, maybe some bantering, if there's some dialogue. Taking a stab at showing some of their fun and awesome traits, some of their strengths, but also showing some of their weaknesses. And just kind of painting the picture of a well-rounded character, especially that first page, is going to be really important. And then as the book goes on, we can dive into other things. We can give that backstory. We can show more of the vulnerabilities. We can show more of the strengths. We can add quirks. We can, obviously flesh out that character. But in that first page, we really want to present someone who can be trusted, someone who is interesting, and someone who is relatable and likable. That's super important. The second thing that I want to talk about in that first page that will get your audience to keep reading, as well as future agents and publishing houses, is establishing the setting, establishing the time frame, the time era, all of those things. We need to set the expectations for the audience. They need to know if it's going to be set in the 1800s. They need to know if it's going to be in the modern day, and they can expect technology. They need to know if it's in the 80s and everyone has high ponytails and are wearing hot pink and lime green. We just need to set that expectation for them so that there's no questions. They're not going, what is happening? Where is this taking place? As far as like the setting goes as well, I mean, we don't need to go into a lot of detail because, again, we are just talking about one page. However, we do need to set the tone of where this is taking place. Is this in the city? Is this at the beach? Is this in a foreign country? Just any slight reference about where the book is taking place. And maybe the character's involvement and relationship with that place is going to do a lot for the audience and really help kind of ground them and help them understand where it's going, where it's taking place, and then just kind of give them an orientation, which is important. The audience also needs to know where it's going. They want to know where it's going. And so that's really important. And then the third one is, I think, the hardest and also maybe the most important, although these are all really important. It's building tension. We want the audience to know that they want to keep reading. We need the audience to really want to know what's going to happen next. You don't have to maybe come out and specifically say what the mystery is going to be or what the big plot line is going to be. I mean, obviously, again, it's just the first page, but it's a first page that needs to make the audience ask questions and make the main character involved in something, and the audience needs to know what that is. Creating tension is so important. And there's a lot of different ways we can do that. We can do that with relationships with the other characters and the main character. We can do that by alluding to, a big problem. There's so many ways. But just adding that element of tension into that very first page from the very get-go is going to not only add to the conflict of your book and make, all that conflict resolution super interesting and get started from the very beginning, but it's also going to drag that audience in, pull them in, make them really want to know what's going on. And so that's why tension is so important to start with. You want to get that in the very beginning, and then obviously keep it going. As you write and as you continue with the story, and even that first chapter, you want to set the pace. You don't want it to be too overwhelming at first, but you also need a little bit of tension in there. So those are my 3 tips. First is develop that main character, make him or her likable, make them have quirks and vulnerabilities and strengths, and make them a well-rounded person. Make them someone that audience is really going to want to read more about. You're going to want to orient your audience. That's tip 2. Give them a setting, give them a time era, let them know what's going down is happening. And then the third thing is adding that tension and keeping that conflict front of mind so that the audience wants to come back for more. Doing those 3 things are really going to help you write a great first page. And that great first page then turns into a great first chapter, a great first half of the book, and ultimately a great book itself. So hopefully this helps. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in my next video.